Well, JD, welcome to another edition of the Bones of Advertising. I'm Craig McLeod, and you are?
I'm John Douglas. I wish I could be Troy McClure again, but sadly Troy's not with us today. In more ways than one.
He's always lurking around. Hi, I'm actor Troy McClure. He's still here somewhere, but he's not here right now. Now, down to the bone for today. Have you got a bone for us to pick over?
I do. I've got a lovely bone to chew on today. I'll just reach back and open up the cupboard way at the back. Way at the back. We're going all the way to the back. We're going all the way back because we're going to chew on a little bone called "You Are Not Your Customer."
Yeah, right. Okay.
I'd like to start. I would like to start with a story. I'd like to start with a story. I was in Tasmania. I worked in Tasmania for a while. Lovely, lovely part of the world. And I was talking with a client, and we were selling online gambling. So the casinos down there had a monopoly. They were moving into online gambling, which, you know, if you can get a footprint online, you know, the sky was the limit. They were looking at, you know, billions and millions of dollars.
Right.
And this guy was a delightful man. You know, I liked to go and have a coffee with him, have a chat. Like he was a lovely, lovely man, but he most certainly was not the sort of person who was going to get into online gambling. He wasn't the sort of person who was into gambling as like, he didn't spend whole afternoons down at the pokies putting 5-cent pieces into a pokey and pressing the magic button. So like he most certainly was not his customer.
Right,
but okay. Having a chat, and he's had this idea. He's go, here's what I think. I think we should do this, and like he explained this ad that I've forgotten what it was, but I do remember my response was, Kevin, just because you know how to spell doesn't mean you know how to write.
Yes.
The language he was using, the idea he'd chosen, the media he was picking had nothing to do with the people he was talking to, and even worse, they were all about trying to convince him that he should actually go and try his own product.
Right.
So it ended up very well. We went out and, you know, had several beers afterwards, and all was good. But the whole idea of trying to help people understand, help marketing managers see a C-suite, like let alone the marketing managers, when the C-suite comes in and says, I've got a marketing idea. And what's the marketing idea? Well, we run an ad on Facebook. Like, that's not marketing idea for a start.
That's a campaign initiative or a meeting. That's not an idea. Certainly not a new one anyway.
No.
Yeah, right. So the thing we're really talking about, I guess, is helping people understand that the best prospect may not necessarily be us or you or the marketing manager, and making sure we're crystal clear when we're building campaigns that we identify exactly who it is that we're building the campaign for. And I guess one of the great things about being in agency land, JD, is we work across a myriad of clients, from footwear all the way through to aged care, which I reckon is the full gamut. I reckon that is the beginning. Well, maybe it's from baby care all the way to aged care.
And if Baby Bunting's out there and they need a new advertising agency, please
call us now. We'd love to do some work with Baby Bunting. It'd be bloody brilliant. But the whole idea of it, JD, which is, I guess, the context of your Tasmanian experience, if you're not a gambler, if you're not someone that goes to, the punt on the weekend, goes and watch the Nags run round, that will bet on a couple of flyers walking up a wall, that will throw $20 down on any kind of challenge, aka Michael Jordan, recent doco, The Last Dance, he would bet on anything. Then you know what? It might be difficult for you to understand where we would place an ad to entertain someone with that kind of psyche or that mentality.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there is we fall over a lot. It's not just it's not just the C-suite, and it's not just marketing managers, client side. It's everyone inside the marketing bubble.
Yeah.
We fall in love with ideas that we come up with. We fall in love with lovely ideas because, you know, we're ideas kind of people. But like, you look at the media people choose, and everyone inside marketing world, not everyone, but like 40-something% of everyone inside marketing land is like, TV's dead. No one's watching bloody TV anymore. There's, you know, the figures are showing this rapid decline. And it's like, no, well, 70% of ordinary Australians love sitting around watching bloody Farmer Needs a Root or whatever the bloody hell.
What about like The Voice is still, you know, it's still rating its bum off. You've got the footy show is still doing exceptionally well. So no, you and I agree that you're right. But it's really about working with someone that can help you identify who the market is. And we have worked closely, little shout out for Nielsen. We've worked closely with them over a number of years because they actually help us firstly identify exactly who it is that's likely to buy the product or service. But then what they do is they scratch a bit deeper and they'll give us some of those insights we need, like advertising attitudes. They'll also give us media consumption habits. And that's how we should be building the media selection based on those. We want to put the ad where the person is when they're most likely to buy. Crazy idea?
No, please don't.
Crazy.
Please don't put the ad in front of the people who are going to buy it. I mean, don't you want to put it in front of the chairman of the business that you're like?
Yeah, you made a good point, JD. It's very hard, particularly, you know, we've both spent some time in creative capacity, you know, more so in a writing capacity as well. But it's very, very difficult to not fall in love with something that you've come up with. Almost impossible when you've put something forward and then you go, I love that. That's just such, but then you're like, well, you need to make sure that it's actually going to hit the mark with the best prospect, because I'm not the best prospect when we're talking about, you know, women's fashion. I'm not the best prospect when we're talking about, you know, maybe golf, or I'm not the best prospect, you know, when we're talking about something that, again, isn't of great interest to me. So you've got to be able to take that normal hat off and say, I'm building this campaign, I'm putting together a media schedule, and I'm putting an idea out there that's going to entertain and engage with and encourage people to act. That's the real important part. We want them to do something after seeing our ad for a specific group of people, not necessarily you or I.
Yeah. It's actually funny. It's nothing to do with advertising, but there was this delightful observation I heard today, the whole Black Lives Matter piece. And I don't want to trivialize Black Lives Matter, please. This is not an attack on anybody. But I do find it interesting that we are getting a view of Black Lives Matter delivered by white reporters to white news teams into our living rooms. And there's this really interesting kind of lens that we look through that further solidifies this kind of our perspective of the world. It's, you know, it's, once we get inside a bubble, we actually don't kind of realize what the bubble is until someone says, you know, women don't talk like that. It's like, oh, well, maybe you're right. Maybe we should ask a woman and see what she has to say.
Crazy. But what else? Another good thing I think for us to touch on, and one of my favorite things, and you know, part of your craft is really about understanding whether there's been more interest and engagement with customers around content and storytelling. So not that it's changed anything that happens, people still want to buy stuff, but that real focus, I guess, around how you can engage more, how you can connect more over a longer term as well. So a content strategy that's sort of built on a really strong brand story, I think is another shift. So getting out of that mindset that you can just bang together a brochure, you know, stick a static website up that's kind of like a brochure and think that you'll be successful. I think we've really realized over the last, probably 10 years that it's so much more important to be able to take our prospective customers and customers on a journey with us, really help them traverse the whole inner sanctum and the process, and provide them with ongoing interest in what we're about and what means something to us as a brand.
What's your story? Like if you're talking to someone at a pub and they say, and you say, so tell us about yourself. What's your story? And they start talking about themselves because they understand the simplicity of what's your story.
Yeah.
And if we can tell our story from a brand point of view, what's the brand story? Like when you're talking to the sales team or the C-suite, you just say, all we're trying to do is have people understand our story, understand and understand how our story helps the customer tell their story. So when a girl walks out when a guy walks down the street and he's got a little blue Tiffany bag in his hand, there's every chance every single woman walking down the street is going, that lucky bitch. You know, it's like that little blue bag says more about that guy than a big neon sign saying, I am the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah,
exactly. It's
yeah.
What is it's that understanding of getting back to the bone of people understanding they're not their customer.
Yeah.
So as much as everyone has ideas and everyone loves to get involved in how we're going to tell our customers why they should buy us, and we think they need to understand this. What drives customers and what drives purchase and what drives behavior and what drives consideration is very, very often very, very different to what would drive our consideration for a product.
The reason for relevance, and relevance over such a long period of time, is connection with the audience. And at the end of the day, that's what you've got to be able to do. You've got to be able to take the John Douglas hat off and put the hat on of whoever. Perfect. Whoever you're deciding to be in that moment, and ensure that your idea is going to connect with them. That's really what we're trying to say, is ensure that when we're building campaigns and making sure that we develop ideas, those ideas are going to resonate with the best prospect. That's really it. And that may not be the marketing manager. It may not be the C-suite. It may not be John Douglas. It may not be Craig McLeod, but we've got to be able to understand what it is that's going to excite the people we are trying to talk to.
And it all goes back to episode 1. Well, the very first thing we said, go and talk to your customer.
Go and talk to your customer.
Find out how your customer talks, find out what your customer needs to hear, find out the way your customer likes to hear it.
Yep.
Tell your story the way they want to hear it, because your story is not what you're telling, your story is what they're hearing.
Yeah.
So that's the easiest, simplest tip I can possibly provide anyone is go and talk to your customer.
Yep, absolutely. So in summary, JD, really important thing for us in this advertising world, in the marketing space, to be able to understand that we may not be the customer in every instance that we're developing campaigns.
Yeah. We are more often than not the customer.
We more often than not are not the customer.
We're more often than not the customer. Yes,
not
indeed.
Not.
And I think the simple test is, if you weren't working for that company, would you have that product in your house?
Yep. Good. That's a really good point. Yeah, exactly. Well, I tell you, there's a lot on that bone, and I think we've chewed quite well. I'm definitely.
We've only just begun. We can come back and visit that bone anytime you like.
Fantastic, mate. That's a wrap on another edition of the Bones of Advertising.
Thank you very much. I've been John Douglas.
We'll see you next week. Don't go changing.